Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I thought I'll do a quick video on strength conditioning. It's a video that I've wanted to do for a long time. Unfortunately the weather is terrible after all those storms that we had. So I was going to try and do this outside with a couple of videos or clips, let's say, of me doing certain exercises. But to be fair, there's so many exercises that you can do in strength conditioning that's going to help you with your individual weaknesses. I think this video would be too long anyway. So once I've done this video, if there's any exercises or weaknesses that you've noticed in your form or what I'm about to go through and you find them and you want a bit of advice on how to strengthen up those areas, you know, as usual, give me a comment, message me on Facebook, whatever, and I'm very happy to send over a few basic exercises that help you strengthen you up. Strength conditioning has been around a long time. It's something I didn't do when I first started, just because I had this mentality of if I had given up an hour to do strength conditioning, that was an hour of running that I wasn't doing. I fell into this trap of how much mileage I was doing per week, basically calling it junk miles. And I actually wasn't doing the strength conditioning stuff that was actually really going to help me get stronger, build a really good strong platform so I wasn't going to get injuries and so on. I think now strength conditioning has become more apparent. I think people are more aware of it. They know they should be doing it, but they don't really know how to do it. And that's hopefully this video will give you a bit of an idea how to do that. So yeah, the reason why I think strength conditioning is so important in your training is it prolongs you to do the sport that you love. Most people think strength conditioning is all about power. It's all about if I was going to do a hill race, that I would do strength conditioning to help strengthen up my legs. But I think it's more to do with injury prevention, strengthen up those weaknesses that running's not really doing on itself, because you're always running on those weaknesses, and obviously stopping you getting injured in the long run. Niggles are all over our sport, and most of the time we go through this whole GP process. We go and see a physio. The physio then will want to see us run. They might want to see us do certain movements, and then they can start to see areas that maybe in your biomechanics, the way you've been training over a period of time, and gone, I'm not surprised you're injured because this is really, really weak, or this is slightly out. Now those things didn't happen overnight. You didn't get injured and all of a sudden these things got weak. It would have happened over a period of time, and that's why I'm saying strength conditioning is so important. Hopefully you can identify those areas of weaknesses, get them strong, nice and easy, once a week workouts, and never have to go through something I've gone through, for example, where I've been injured for 2 years, or any injury that's going to take you out 6 weeks, because all those things have a knock-on effect, and no one likes, especially runners, we don't like being locked away and we can't go and do the things that we normally do. We can't go on the trails. Yeah, injury is a tough time for anybody, so get the strength conditioning done and prevent those injuries and keep doing the sport that you love. Now, how I do it, if I had a client come in and said, Alex, I want to do some strength conditioning, but I don't know how to do it. First things first, we've got to get a little bit of history of someone. But you can normally tell someone's weaknesses from the first point is when they do a squat. So if you get them to do a basic squat, and for example they just can't get their legs down to 90 degrees, for example, in their squat, we know there's some tight muscle groups there. There's going to be maybe some imbalances. You can even start to see twists in hips, all just from a squat. Even upper body, you know, if the shoulders are rounded forward, all those areas, we know that that type of runner is going to need a lot of work, a lot of strength conditioning work to help get to, well, be bulletproof from injury, really. Sometimes someone might be suffering with niggles all the time, and we can look at exercises that potentially will cause it. So I've done it in one of my old videos from last year. Most injuries don't just happen from that muscle group. So for example, my Achilles tendon, or Achilles tendon that's torn, for example, doesn't necessarily mean the Achilles wasn't strong. You've got to remember the Achilles tendon is the strongest tendon in the body. You probably find that some other muscle group, like your calves, maybe the hamstrings weren't firing correctly. They were weak, which put extra pressure on your Achilles, which caused the problem in the first place. So on a strength conditioning work, if someone's got niggles all the time, it's not necessarily as easy just to say, okay, you've got this injury, it's because this is weak. What other muscle groups, what other biomechanic issues that you've got that are causing that injury? So once you've got that little bit of history, you can start to identify maybe the possible areas that this runner had. Other things that you can do are things like running gait analysis. So I'm sure some of us have done it all before. You've gone to a running shop, they've done a running gait analysis and they've given you the correct shoes. We can use running gait analysis to actually have a look at our form. Now, some of us will never get the perfect form. We can work towards it, but our biomechanics might be slightly different. We might be heel runners, we might be toe runners, or forefoot runners, let's say. On a running gait analysis, we can check things like your hips. So, for example, when we do like a slow motion of you running behind you, we can actually see if how much force is going through those hips when they drop on one side. And in slow motion, it looks really, really painful if someone's hips are dropping really, really low. And that's normally a classic sign of like things like hamstrings aren't firing properly, which I'll go into in a minute what I mean by that. So again, we know that we've got to start working on those hamstrings to strengthen them up and then go from there. We can look at, you know, your feet coming out to the side. You might not be landing correctly, you might be landing more on one side of the foot. All those areas are potential injury factors that we need to look at, and when we do our strength conditioning to help change that and make you a better runner, and obviously again bulletproof as injury. So another really good area to look at is balance. As trail runners, we know that our trails are never flat, not all the time anyway. There's always that potential to go over ankles and so on. So me personally, first thing I always do is go get a runner to stand on one leg, eyes open, and see if they can do that for 30 seconds. And I'm quite surprised how many people can't actually do that. If I do have a runner that does do that, I get them to close their eyes and see if they can do the same thing. So again, standing on one leg, eyes closed, can they do that for 30 seconds? And again, it should be super, super easy, but everyone loses balance. And that's sometimes, I find if your mind isn't in tune with what your body's doing, then that potentially can cause a lot more issues. So what I mean by that is, if you can't stand with your eyes closed, when you can do a standing on one leg with your eyes open, you're obviously fixated on something. So your mind can imagine what your leg's doing and can keep it solid. So when you're running on a trail, obviously your mind isn't concentrating on what your leg is doing. You can't fixate on one point, you're moving all the time. So the idea is if you have your eyes closed, your mind then can't imagine or can't think, which should be able to, what your leg is doing. And all of a sudden that leg starts to shake and then we fall over. And that's what's happening on a trail. So when you're running on that trail, you're not looking at anything else, you're just looking at the trail ahead. Your knee on your leg is doing this whole twisty balancing thing like you're doing when you're standing on one leg with your eyes closed, every single step that you do. So by just holding that 30 seconds and practicing it can sometimes just get your leg in tune. And that's where the strength conditioning stuff. So balance is definitely a big, big issue. You've seen people do videos where they're standing on a ball of some form, they might be throwing a ball at a wall. It's all of those to help with balance and core strength as well. Another identifier if someone needs to do strength conditioning is posture. So if someone is standing and you can see them rolling up the shoulders, for example, most of our trails we are carrying a lot of kit, and that rounded shoulders, we could be scrambling. All those areas there can cause the back a little bit of problems, which again is going to have a knock-on effect down the body as well. So don't just think about when you're doing your strength conditioning, it's all about the lower body. Upper body is just as important, and again when we're assessing, we're doing posture analysis, we can tell those areas and think, well, okay, we need to do some areas on the back to help strengthen up those shoulders in their strength conditioning. So that's basically how I identify it. I know I can't visually show you that. I'll try and do a video when I am actually doing it on a client, possibly, if that client allows me to do it. But they're the sort of areas that we can look at. Major one is squats. Can that person actually do a squat properly with good posture and good form? Balance, and then having a look at their running gait analysis. You know, can we identify any areas in their part as well? And those 4 areas there, once we can see that, we can start to build up on those weaknesses and start putting a plan together. So what I'm going to do now, I'll just go through some of the muscle groups that are potentially weaknesses that I see in runners, and what sort of exercise or sort of focus that I do to help strengthen up those areas, and I'll go one by one. So hamstrings. Hamstrings is one area. It's really rare, I think, really for runners, of ultra runners that is, to have hamstring injuries, just because we shouldn't be overstriding, we shouldn't be doing that speed work. If you're a sprinter, that's a bit different. They are very powerful runners and very quick. Hamstrings can't they're very good at long distance stuff, you'll probably find, and I don't really see many tears or pulls in hamstrings in runners. But as we exercise more, things get tighter. Hamstrings is one of those ones that will do that. So in theory, if you're having hamstrings issues, what we notice there's areas that could improve, it's probably going to be down to flexibility. So it's just going down those hamstring stretches routines. So just remember, when you come to flexibility exercises, doing it once after your workout is fine, but you want to be doing it a couple of times a day if you want to improve on flexibility. And it could be any time of your day, really, morning and get night in, if you really need to improve it. Don't just think, oh, I'll just stretch after my run more. That's really going to help my flexibility. It will help, and it's a good plus, but I find the more you do of it, the quicker you're going to get flexibility in those certain muscle groups. Quads is the next one. So that's the big muscle on the front of your legs. Again, it's one of those ones I don't really see many injuries in it, but your quads become very, very powerful muscle groups, and we seem to use them a hell of a lot. I would probably say they probably get used or they develop more than the hamstrings do. If you're having problems with your quads, I normally find it's something to do with, like, when they get tighter, they cause problems other places, like hip flexors, for example. Again, quads, if you're having struggle in areas there or you find a certain tightness, it's another flexibility one, just like your hamstrings. Again, they get tighter when we exercise, and again, work on your flexibility, get a couple of quad exercises in there, and you'll solve that issue, no problem at all. So next one's lower back. I find with lower back, most people will say it's core. I probably agree with that a little bit. If your core's not strong, obviously that lower back's gonna have issues. The main reason we have lower back issues if we're runners is that impact, and our back can't take that sort of impact. So I normally find other muscle groups below the hips aren't really strong enough, they're not really absorbing that impact and protecting that back a little bit. So again, when it's lower back, I normally find it's other muscle groups down the body that could be causing the issue. Again, it's worth a little check. Again, squats is a good one to check those out if you like. Again, flexibility in those lower muscle groups, that can really help. When you're doing your strength conditioning stuff, I wouldn't say it's necessary that we have to start doing a lot of back work if you're having lower back issues. It's more to do with getting your body used to impact. So this is where we're looking at our plyometric work, where maybe we might be doing a squat and a jump and we're landing and controlling that landing. But again, when you start to do plyometric works, we need to build up to that stage first. You can't just go, okay, I'm getting a lower back issue, I'm going to go straight into jump squats. There needs to be squats, bit of other plyometrics, maybe single leg stuff, and then you build up to your jump squats. So don't just jump straight into it. But like I said, lower back issues is normally to do with impact, maybe posture, if you've got really, really bad posture, or you're sat in an office all day. It could be just general lower back issues and the running just overloads it a little bit. Again, if you're an office-based worker, there's nothing wrong in your normal day just to get up, do a couple of squats, and then get back on your seat. It's not weird. It's just keeping you active. Like I said, if you really enjoy your sport and you want to keep going, doing a couple of squats each day could save you having those lower back issues. Yeah, so lower back, normally an impact issue. Another big area, which is normally the main cause of a lot of stuff, is glutes. You don't normally pull your glutes, but your glutes sometimes don't fire. And what I mean by that is, I mentioned it a little bit earlier on the other videos, is when you start to run and you've been running for a long time, your mind gets a little bit lazy, or it tries to find the easiest way to do the exercise that you're doing. And that's normally our quads. So our quads become very, very powerful muscle groups, and it forgets about our glutes, and then it starts to deactivate. So they're not really working as good as they should be. And if they were, your speed, your pacing, your power that you're driving in onto each stride would be so much more. So things like, the way to test it is bridges. So this is the one where you're lying flat on your back on the floor, you've got your knees tucked in towards your bum, and you lift up your hips as high as you can. And you want to be doing that with a good squeeze in those glutes, which is your bum, if you didn't know that already, and see if you can go up, maybe do 20 repetitions of that. You should be able to do that easy peasy. You should even be able to do single leg ones, where you've got one leg off the ground and one on the ground, again lifting those hips up, again 20 reps each leg, easy peasy. You should be getting to a stage where you can put your foot onto maybe like a ball, for example, or a wobble board, the other foot in the air, and do 20 reps. And that's how you'll know if your glutes are activating well. Sometimes I normally do this for the first runners and they get cramped straight away in the hamstrings, and that's just because the glutes aren't awake at all, they're not going to help you out, and the hamstring's just gone, oh, I can't do this on my own. So yeah, glutes work definitely. When I mentioned about running gait analysis, if your hip is dropping and it's quite prominent, you'll see it if you ever do a slow motion video of a gait analysis of it, it's normally because those glutes aren't working, and they will help with cushioning, help with lower back as well. So glute work. So before I move on from glutes, other exercises you can do, I sort of just briefly went over bridges. Deadlifts, really good, as long as you're concentrating on activation on those. Squats, good squats, all those type of exercises. Lunges, okay, split squats, whatever, you know, all those exercises there are going to really help strengthen up those areas. But just remember, if it's hamstrings and quads, yes, you can build them up for events, but normally it's flexibility for those two muscle groups. But glutes, yeah, those type of exercises are going to really help strengthen up and get them firing. Next big area is calves. Now, calves are a hard one. They should be really, really strong. What good thing about calf is they're very good at endurance stuff. And as we're running all the time, they're going to get pretty powerful. But the problem with them is sometimes they lose a little bit of strength, or one is super stronger than the other. There's always going to be a difference between your left and right, depending if you're right-handed or left-handed. But there shouldn't be massive differences in them. So for example, doing single leg calf raises, doing for example 20 reps, that should be super easy. If that's starting to burn, and you may be doing 2-3 sets of those, then you know there's slight weakness there. Other things like hops, if you can hop on your leg, for example, for 30 seconds, if that starts to burn, again, might be slightly of an impact there. You can also do, when you're doing your hops, is listen to your left and your right foot and see if there's a difference. And what I mean by that is, for example, when I was pre-surgery, I would jump on my left, which is actually my weaker side, and I was actually landing quite quietly. I could do it really, really softly. If I tried to jump on my right, which is my strong one, you can really hear the difference. I was really hammering the floor, and that tells me potentially that my calves weren't really controlling that impact, which again has that shockwave up the leg, or in my case, Achilles. It could have been necessarily that my calves got really, really tight, and there was a weakness there. Maybe I was overcompensating, which eventually did the damage to my Achilles tendon. So calf strength, again, load it. Start putting weight on it. You can do this on a leg press, for example. You've got your foot on a plate and you're lifting up your heel. Start adding weight onto it. There's no reason why you can't do your body weight on a leg press. Even try and get higher. You know, double your body weight. No problem at all. Just get load on it. I mean, like something like 6 to 10 reps. And really get that strength through it. Again, there's range as well, just making sure you're getting really, really high and you're getting full movement onto the toes, and then that drop in the heel as well. That's another classic example if you've got a bit of weakness in the calves. But normally I find is doing normal calf raises, does it hurt in a good way? And also, what did I say? Calf raises, flexibility, that's it really. So bit of plyometric work to strengthen them up, calf raises. Now knees is a big one for us runners, where we get slightly different pain. This is quite, from a PT side of things, once I see someone and they say they've got knee issues, it's a little bit easier to identify what the cause is, because there is so many number of things that could be causing knee injuries. But I think the one thing to look at really mainly is the tracking of the knee. If you find that your knees slightly turn inwards or outwards, they're not really following your toes, again, there could be super tight muscle groups that are pulling your knee around the corner of your leg, for example, biomechanical issues, whatever, and all those areas are going to need strengthening. I find if it's a biomechanical issue and you've always done that, it's going to be really, really hard to ever try and change you completely. But what we can do is the potential risks of what that knee does, and there's what it could cause in other muscle groups. We can look at strengthening those so it can take that work that you're about to do to it. Because what we've got to remember is when we do a race, for example, we might start off an ultra really strong, really good form, powerful, energetic strides, and we get to about that 20 to 30 miles, and then we start to get tired and our form starts to collapse. And because we've got a long period of time in that really collapsed running form, that's when things are going to start to hurt and injuries start to arise. And that's when, with the strength conditioning, hopefully you can support you take that bad form and be able to keep you going to the end of it without any niggles. So like I said, with the knees, it's a classic example of your knees not tracking correctly. Strengthen up those other muscle groups. Potentially it could be the risk from your knee, and go from there. But like I said, knees are quite the hardest one out of all of them to identify it on yourself, because it's hard to tell if it's cartilage, it's knees not tracking, or ITV bands too tight, for example. Those type of areas you'll need to be assessed really to get that right. So ankles. I include Achilles in this one. Normally you don't really want, you can strengthen your ankles, but ankles normally, we mean by that is if you're rolling over your ankles quite a lot, Achilles strains, plantar stuff, yeah, and even anterior tibialis injuries, which is the tendon that comes from the bottom of your shin that goes around the ankle. All those are potential areas, and we've got to remember when we're wearing these trainers and running on trails, you know, there's a lot of movement in there and they need to be nice and strong as well. I normally find for most of those I've mentioned, it's all to do with balance. So again, doing the whole stand on one leg, eyes closed, wobble board stuff, just to get you used to that twisting and turning, different multi-directional in your strength conditioning stuff to ready for the trails. Plantar issues, again, it's a really hard one to fix, like Achilles is. It's a long process. It might be something in your feet has changed. I normally find that sending someone through their normal GP route and getting assessed properly for that. But we could look at muscle groups above that, for example the calves again, and saying, okay, are the calves strong? Can they help support your plantar work? And that's the same when it comes to your Achilles tendon, and strengthen up those areas to help support those. Yeah, balance work, key one for ankles. So they're the typical areas that I find weaknesses on. Hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea what areas you need to be looking at to work on. It's really hard to give you tons of exercise because we could be here all day trying to give you routines, but hopefully you can work out and go, okay, this is not as strong as it should be, and hopefully I'll be able to put some exercise together, if that's through Google, message me, other PTs, whatever, to give you some exercise to help strengthen those. So I'm just looking at my list, just things hopefully I haven't missed. So exercises are really good for strength conditioning. It's a lot of single leg work, we know that already. So single leg presses, single leg squats, lunges, deadlifts. There's nothing wrong with doing press ups, for example, to help with core strength as well. So you can do all your Russian twists, ab work, planks, multiple different directional planks to help with the core. Scorpion kicks, if you don't know what those are, they're really good to help with freeing up those hips, because our hips come really tight if we'll be doing lots of high mileage. Remember, we get tight when we exercise. Band squats, yeah, I like doing a lot of band work with clients, and that's pretty much it in a big overall look at strength conditioning. Remember, it's all an individual thing when it comes to this, so everyone's going to be doing slightly different routines. There isn't one answer to suit you all, and then if you think you're a runner who's got perfect form and you don't have any niggles, I can pretty much guarantee you'll still have a weakness somewhere. It just hasn't come too far down the line yet where it's become an issue. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully that's helped. If there's anything you're not too sure about, areas that you think you've noticed that aren't as strong, if you want to take a video of you doing squats, or done a running gait analysis, whatever, and you send it to me, I'm happy to have a quick little look at it and see maybe some potential areas that you want to be looking at to strengthen. Don't mind that at all. Again, you know, Facebook message me, you can comment on my YouTube channel, anything you want, and I'm happy to help. That's it. Next videos, I've got another vlog video to come out. I've got my physio today, and then I'm also then going to work on an area that I really enjoy in my distance, which is 100 miles, and I've got to do the GB Ultras 100-mile training series, and I'll give you an idea how to train for each one of those races on that type of distance, and hopefully give you some training tips. Anyone who's done 100 miles before, or anyone's thinking, okay, I've done a few 50s now, I'm ready to take that big step to 100. And that's it. Enjoy the weather, guys. See you all soon.